Alejandro from Costa Rica. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. I'm super looking forward for it.
We just came back from lunch, so we're not sure how much energy we're going to have. I met Alejandro at a train station in Cluj, Romania, I think about a week or two after the war broke out.
Yeah, you kidnapped me.
I kidnapped you, and I needed an extra driver to go to the border with me. And I saw this guy who just stood out in public. He had this big wavy hair, looked like a horse's mane. And I thought, that must be a YWAMer. And sure enough, Alejandro is here with associated with YWAM. You have some connections with YWAM, but I would love to go back into the story of Alejandro's life and how God really got a hold of your life. I remember hearing some of your story when we drove to the border, Ukraine, and it was really powerful. And if you're okay with that, we'd love our listeners to hear some of that. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what was it like growing up in Costa Rica?
Well, growing up in Costa Rica was pretty warm and humid, and it was lovely. I grew up together with my family, so I was growing up with my uncles and grandparents in the same house, so it was always full of people. So I grew up around a lot of people.
Was it a big house?
No, it was not that of a big house. They only had like 3 bedrooms, and we were living there with around maybe 6 people. Plus, my grandparents always had like people who were not family. They would come and stay over for a year or so.
Wow,
just
not
friends.
Not just for a few nights. So
No.
They would just
year. Stay over for a year. I'm like, okay.
Was that a normal Costa Rican experience, like families living together and having long-term guests?
The part of family living together, it is. But having long-term guests, I think my family was just quite weird.
Okay. Costa Rica is not that big. It was like 5 million people or something.
Yeah, we are actually 5 million people. We just hit 5 million people like 2 years ago, I think.
Okay. It's a tropical paradise, right? There's just rainforests and
it is great.
Volcanoes.
Yes, I always advise like to people, if you want to experience paradise on earth, just fly to Costa Rica. Skip the capital because it ain't that pretty, to be honest. But then just head straight to the rainforest, head straight to the volcanoes, and it is gorgeous. It is really, really pretty. Actually, if I'm not wrong, we are the country with the most biodiversity per square meter in the world. So,
as a small boy growing up in a house full of chaos and family, and
yes,
what was it like growing up? You have a positive experience?
Yeah, I think I have both. Growing up with family is always nice because you are depending on how your family is, right? I felt protected, I felt loved, but I also grew up without my father. So my example was my grandfather and my uncles. And I have to say, my uncles were not, maybe they were like 5 years older than me. So they were in this period of teenagers struggling through all these hormones. So that was my example also growing up. So yes, I have a good experience, but at the same time, I got into some wrong stuff when I was around 7 years old, 6 years old. My father and my mom, they never got to get married. Actually, he was the boss of my mom at work. And they just hung out together. And in one of those hangout nights, here I am, 9 months later. When I was 1 year and a half, actually, my father told my mom that he was leaving to America. So he left, and we never heard of him. So I grew up till I was 6 without not even a picture of him. They knew how he looked, never a call, never a letter, nothing. And
how was that for a young Alejandro? Do you remember going to school and seeing like mom and dad and wondering where your dad was?
Yeah, that was really painful. Yeah, I remember my mom was in most of the Father Day activities that I had to do or act, and sometimes my uncles will come. So that was special to have family around. But yeah, it was pretty rough. Like in Christmas, I would see my cousins with my uncles, and was just like, "Hey, we love you." And then, or in New Year when the clock hits 12 midnight, then everybody hug each other, and I'm like, yeah, I'm hugging my mom, and I love her, but I know there is a missing piece there. And actually, I didn't say this in the beginning, but actually I grew up with two moms till I was 8 years old. So in some point, you kind of balance it, but it's still, as a man, as a young boy, you always have that desire to have your father, that male figure who is there to protect you, to really guide you, to teach you this cool stuff, you know?
Was that confusing to you, having two moms?
When I was a child, I did not really understood that I actually had two moms. I saw her more like a really close aunt. I never saw my mom and my other mom kissing or something like that. So it was always like in front of me, they hug, but I always thought, oh, maybe like a sister, you know. So now growing up, after my 12, I started questioning myself, like, might have been something else, but I never really faced it actually till quite recently, a few years ago. I decided to face it. I decided to ask my mom, really straightforward, and then she confirmed it. And
So you're growing up without a dad. You've got a bunch of family in the house, and take us through the teenage years and some of the struggles and things that you were going through.
as you could expect, I was full of anger. I was angry with life. I was angry with God. I offended God. When I was even 8 years old, I would just look at him and say, "You are beep about work." I was so mad at God.
Where did you get your concept of God?
Well, my family, they were all Catholic. So they would go to church every Sunday, or my mom will take me actually to catechism. So I knew about God. I knew the existence of God, but I hated God. So I did not deny that God existed. It was like, I'm here, you are there, and that's it. You do your business, I do my business. While I was growing up, I had spiritual experiences as well. So I knew I could not deny God.
What kind of spiritual experiences?
I saw for angels when I was 7 years old. Every time that I wake up, I would see an angel standing in the living room. So I had this experience with God, but I didn't knew God. Through my teenage years, I grew up with all this angriness, and I was kicked out of school because I got into fights. Like two times I was kicked out. I even hit a teacher one time. So I had all this pain inside of me. My sexuality was broken. I was watching pornography since I was 6 years old. So with my cousin, and then later when I was around 10, with my uncles, we were all in the same room and we started watching porn all together. So all my mindset about sex and was broken. I mean, it was really broken. Even in high school, with growing up, going to this public school where everything's more allowed, make me more of a mess. And then I reached a point where I started going to a psychologist, and they were just checking me out about my anger issues, about how do I react the way that I used to react. And till finally, I said to my mom, I just want to die. Because,
Wow.
yeah, that was pretty...
How old were you when you started going to psychologist?
I started going to psychologist actually since I was like age 7.
Your mom saw you needed help, or
Yes.
how did that come about?
Because I was extremely afraid of dying. I couldn't even go to a graveyard or something like that. I couldn't even drive through it because I would panic. I was in a kids party in McDonald's, and they used to give like this drawing paper, right? So I draw a guy with a gun and some people dead, and I don't know why. Then the McDonald's, they have their own psychologist actually, and she contacted my mom. So I started going to the psychologist with the McDonald's lady.
Through McDonald's.
Through McDonald's, yeah, this is so random, but it happened. And then a friend of my mom, she knew a psychologist, and then she checked on me a little more often. Okay. So I grew up going to psychologist actually till I was probably 11.
Just curious, if you looking back, do you see that was that a lifesaver for you to have someone to talk with, or did that mess you up even more?
That's a good question. Never really thought about it, but I think looking back now, even though it was really awkward many times, I think actually was what I needed, because I faithfully believe this, and it's no matter how introvert we are or extrovert, or how much pain we have passed through or not, we are all looking for somebody to hear us out. And I think the fact that I would just go to this psychologue and she would put me to play with little cars that I was like, what is this? This is for kids. While I was just talking, that actually helped me to put a lot of weight out of my heart. It was super awkward, but it helped me out. I think.
So let's fast forward into the teenage years. Thank you for sharing that. I don't want to dwell on your childhood development too much, but it was important to hear that, because as you are struggling with your sexuality, angry with God, and as you mentioned, now even considering death as the option to get out of real pain. Can you take us through what happened?
Yeah. So after I told my mom that I wanted to die, just die or so, because I knew I was a load. I felt like a load for her. I remember one time she went out to work and I was just at the home alone. I went to the cabinet of the bathroom and I just took a bunch of pills. Thanks God, I just went into a deep sleep and I wake up later. But I tried to do that 2 times. And the last time that I tried to kill myself was by asphyxiate myself. I tried to do that. Yeah, that was actually pretty shocking. It was also the first time that I actually prayed out loud to God. But I just say, listen, God, if you do exist, and I remember this clearly, I was in the living room downstairs, and I say, if you do really exist, you have to save my life, because I have tried sexuality, I've tried even alcohol with my friends, and I'm going to end up killing myself. I was 13. Suddenly, 3 days later, I'm in my neighborhood, just hanging out with my friends, sitting down in the sidewalk, and just doing stupid stuff that teenagers do in this late nights. And then we see these 5 guys coming into our neighborhood. And we're like, well, these guys are not from our neighborhood. It's pretty late. This might be something going on. So my friend asked me to grab some knives in case of. Yeah,
some knives.
Yeah, I mean, man, we are in Latin America. We are not in Europe here. Survival skills, you know.
Alejandro, so 13, 14-year-old, you're part of a gang. You didn't even know it.
Yeah, no, it was not even a gang. It was just like these neighborhood friends, and we were like, okay, we have to survive. So I grabbed these knives out of his house, come out, and he looked at me, and he like, put the knives down. So I put the knives down, and then as I walk out, these guys started talking about God. And they're saying God is a father and God loves you and all these things that we have heard all over and over and over again. And the first thing I thought was like, dude, that's crap. I don't have a father. How can God be a father when I don't even have a father here? That's just crap. But then the guy kept talking. He said, you maybe feel that you have tried this and this and this. And I'm like, well, that sounds like my prayer. So I give it a chance to God. So I say, okay, I'll take it. And I took it. I pray with them. The prayer I think that we all have done at a certain point of our lives. Put your hand in your heart. Pray this prayer with me. And I did it. And I will not say I felt completely different, but I did feel like there's something there. I don't know what it was in that moment, but there was something there. Mm-hmm. So they invite me to a home group. I started going.
And did any of your friends pray as well?
Yeah, we all did it.
Yeah. Any of the prayers stick?
Mine only.
Okay.
The guys from the neighborhood, they were coming because the leader was quite pretty. So they would be coming, but then after it became too spiritual, they were like, we ain't going there.
Yeah, this isn't going in the direction we needed to.
Indeed.
But you had brokenness. You had real pain. Yeah. And so in your prayer, there was a measure of desperation.
I was desperate, yeah. I knew if God wouldn't, God was my last resource because of my broken relationship with Him. So for me to get to the point that I didn't even ask or call my uncle or my aunt or a cousin and tell them how I felt, I just scream out to God. I just felt like it's now life or death point where I feel right now. So for me, that was a moment where I had to make a decision.
So you start going to these Bible studies and developing relationships with people.
Yeah. And I lost my friends from the neighborhood. They would not talk to me anymore because I became a Christian. So I prayed to God to give me new friends. So I started connecting with people in the church. I started growing, getting some healing, also getting confronted by some things in my life. That was my experience in my teenage years, where it was more about finding God, finding myself, How can I forgive my father? How can I forgive myself? How I can forgive my uncles? How I can forgive all these people who damaged me? Trying to accept that life happens. We want it to happen or not, and sometimes we just can't control it. And I think that's how it felt for me. Like I was just being led by all the circumstances in my life, and until that point where I was like, okay, now it's enough. I know I will not be able to have control of my life 100%, but that's fine. But I need to know I'm okay. In that moment, I stopped and I just started thinking, okay, God, what is your plan with me? Where do I need healing? Just dig out all this dirt, and it hurt. It hurt a lot.
And it wasn't like in a special moment. It was over a period of years.
Yeah, it was a period of years. It was not. I wish we would have been just like Paul, just like this, and everything changed. Oof. But no, it took a while. Actually, till now, I think God is still working out stuff in my life, in my sexuality. God is still working out stuff. So that's. I think like what Paul say in the Bible, like I have this thing in me, but it keeps me humble. I don't think, of course, the struggle with the sexuality is that God intended to be like that. But at some point, it's something that it keeps me looking. It keeps me looking for God more often, because I know I need God in order to conquer this area that it was broken since I was a child. Mm-hmm. So even though if I don't give in into pornography or into something else, I know it's something that I feel tempted and attracted to. So I know I require God in order to be able to stay away.
When I think of where you're at now, there seems like you're in Romania, you're doing mission work with your beautiful wife and daughter.
Yeah.
And we'll get to them in just a second. It seems like not just the geographical chasm, Costa Rica, Romania, but how far God has brought you from this teenage years of turmoil and this simple prayer. Can you give us a high-level overview of how you went from those Bible studies, new friends, new community, starting to get healed? We have somebody vacuuming upstairs or something.
I think it rained.
Oh, is it rain?
It's rain, yeah.
Okay, it's like Costa Rica.
Yeah, it's just feeling home.
How did you end up here? How did you get married? Give us the bird's eye view.
All right. So, I started going to home group. I started growing into the church. That's how I became a youth leader for 5 years. And so I opened my own home group. I had people that I was teaching, that I was discipling. Yeah. Sorry. And it was a great experience. I love it. Each part of it, I love it a lot. I had great leaders as well. So I think something that helps me through my conversion till now was to have the right people next to me. People who actually, they never really judged me. They really helped me through, even if I would just call them like 11 p.m. and say, hey man, I'm watching porn now, help me out. They would be like, okay, it's fine. Drop it. We pray for you. Come over. Stuff like that. So that was really good to have people that I could just trust my heart and just be open to. I always felt the need for broken people to go, to help, to care. It's something that even now, like we were talking earlier at lunch, it's something that actually really drives my heart. And because it was something that I needed in some point in my life and I never had. And I never had that secure place to really start or to do something till I met God. And so I started getting involved with a missionary organization, helping out locally. I started organizing youth events to go and feed the homeless people, to go and evangelize in the streets. So I got really involved in all this Christian work. And I just kept dreaming. I knew I had a vision also that God called me to the nations. And a lot of people, while they were praying, different people that they didn't know each other, they pray and they all felt the same direction. A really good friend of mine from America, he started supporting me without I even knew about it, just to do local missions and stuff. And that was really a blessing. And then that confirmed a lot of what God intended for my life. I just see open doors, and I started just walking through them. In one of those doors, there was a big conference in Latin America, in Costa Rica actually, where teams from Panama, Mexico, Holland, anywhere in the world, they would come together with like a missionary convention, and they would just share experience. One of those teams was my wife. She was, she's from Holland, the Netherlands, but she was serving in Panama, our neighbor country. So they came over. And then she says, this is really funny, because in that moment I was not looking to get into a relationship or anything, because I just had a horrible breakup with a girl. But then I see this beautiful Dutch girl coming, and she introduced herself to me. She's like, "Hi, my name is Rosanna. How are you?" I said, "Hi, my name is Alejandro." We start talking, and we talked like for 3 days in the conference, and then each of our teams departed to different areas in the country to evangelize. At the end of the conference, we decided to exchange Facebook and phone numbers, and that was in 2014. And for the next 2 years and a half, we would be doing Skype. We would talk through WhatsApp, through Facebook, till the point that she was like, "Hey, what do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, I want to do missions." And you? And she said, "I want to do it as well. I'm about to finish my study," she said, in September. "And I'm not going to do nothing for the next 3 months. So either you come now or you don't come anymore." I'm like, wow, that's a woman of decision. So I went. I went to the Netherlands, met her friends, met her parents, meet her again after 2 years and a half. And we decided to come to Romania. We were working with gypsies, with a local organization, and we fell in love with Romania. We definitely did. And then in December 2016, we flew back to Costa Rica together so she could meet my parents and my family and my friends. And then in 2017, we got married, and we decided to go back to Romania to do Bible schools, to serve the people, to serve gypsies, Romanians, Hungarians as well. And so far, here are we. And then last year, our beautiful daughter was born. It's funny that you asked this question, because just 4 days ago, I was just talking with Rosanna, and I say, I could have never, ever imagined in my life I would be here. Never. A guy from Costa Rica, from a broken family, where only broken marriages in my family, where I grew up without a father. I was about to kill myself. I have terrible breakups because I had a terrible sexuality. And now I'm here. And I have a treasure of a family I could never ever imagine. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that comes to my mind is this Bible verse. I think it's in Jeremiah that it says, I will show you things that the heart haven't seen, or the eyes haven't seen or heard. And it's like a song in my life, because if I look back, there's not a chance, if God would haven't been in the equation, that I would even get that far in my life. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have met God probably by the age of 20, I would not even be here. Yeah, I think for all of you who are listening or watching, I would just say, it might be scary to give a chance to God, because once you open a door to God, He doesn't come for the 5%, He comes for 110% of you. And it's scary, it's painful, but it is 100% worth it. 100% worth it. I don't regret that at all.
Having a daughter now and being a father, what are some of the things that you're learning about God?
Wow. So much. I think, of course, I learned so much about God, like, His father heart. Like I felt so many times, I'm like, man, I don't know if He's going to be willing to forgive me after 100,000 mistakes, even now knowing Him. But then I looked at my daughter, I'm like, you can burn this house down, I will still love you with my whole heart. And then that is like, well, but if I'm a father, I'm a human father, and have this corrupted love, how much can the perfect love me? Actually, I wrote down today a post on Instagram. She has taught me more about myself than what I would expect from my own daughter. Mm-hmm. I would teach her so many things. In this year and a half, she has taught me more than I could have probably ever learned about my character, my weaknesses, but also my strengths, how far I'm willing to go for love. And she actually have taught me so much about the love is not just the emotional feeling, but actually just a decision. We hear that a lot of time, but it's so real. Mm-hmm. It is just so real. Because when you're awake at 3 a.m. and you haven't slept anything and you have to change diapers, man, that's a challenge too. After a month of not sleeping. But
it's interesting how teaches us both about the Father, but like you're saying, about ourselves. And I, as a father of a bunch of kids, I remember the first few children going into their rooms at night while they're sleeping, because it's just amazing. Yeah, you're just looking at this helpless, vulnerable daughter or son, and in those moments, the kind of hearing voice, that like, that's how I see you. And that does undermine a lot of our own experiences, because we've been loved by imperfect love, yet to exchange kind of that perception of, sometimes very broken perception of who we think God might be, for something more powerful, it can be so scary. Like you're saying, like I was reading today in Matthew, John the Baptist from prison says, are you the one? And Jesus says, go tell them, the blind can see, and the dead are raised, and the sick, are healed. And then there's a verse at the end of it that struck me, and it says, blessed are those who are not offended by this. They don't stumble over Jesus. And I thought, what is there to stumble over? Why is it so offensive? What is he doing? He's not going around robbing people.
Yeah.
He's bringing love. He's not bringing destruction. He's bringing healing. And yet we are terrified, I think, of this surrendering into this kind of love, because it so reforms and kind of deconstructs all that we know. And we love this certainty. This certainty is our reality. It's stability to us. Even if you were raised in a broken home in Costa Rica, it still was what you knew.
Yeah.
And yet this love, this perfect love, is still transforming you today.
Yeah. And actually is beautiful, because this perfect love has transformed a lot of my family. Like if I look back, he hasn't not only fathered me, but as the word of God says, me and my house will serve the Lord. I remember accepting God, and for the next 2 years, I started just praying hard. And my mom, actually, she got married with my stepfather now. They are serving both the Lord. They are actually in the church leadership. My stepfather, he was involved in alcoholism. He was the manager of a bar. He quit his job, even without even having a job, just to pursue God. And I just see how perfect love, once that you allow yourself to be filled up with him, you can change your surroundings.
Surroundings, right?
Yeah. And something that you said, about how getting to know this love of a father, and also what they teach us about that it can be scary. What the kids can teach us, that it can be scary. I felt the same way. I remember when I found out that Rosanna was pregnant, I was so scared. I'm like, I never had a father. What am I going to teach her? And this is crazy, but I always wanted to have a daughter, because I realized about it a few months ago. I was so afraid to have a son and fail him, because my father failed me. Now I'm okay. I'm over it. I'm okay if God decided to give us a son. Actually, I pretty love it too as well. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But those are things that we don't understand until we are willing to lay down all our walls. How you say, we have to lay it down. That's why we as people get offended sometimes with God, not because he's robbing, as you say, but because it requires all of us, everything of us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's in some point the beauty.
Right.
That he's so interested in our brokenness. Like if you meet somebody, you have a friend, your friend can be interested in a certain amount of your brokenness, but that's it. I can only help you through here. I can only hear your brokenness still here. I also have my problems. But God is like, oh no, go ahead.